Well, hi, good morning. Thank you for coming and joining me here in my shop on June 19th. It's been a couple days since I've been in here because the weather has been fantastic. And there's a lot of gardening work to do outside, so that's what I've been up to. But not been in here till this morning. And again, today's another beautiful day. So the last video, I kind of concluded the real problem with this radio is all about these coils here. And so today I really want to investigate these coils. I've done it once. Everything seemed okay, but for sure the signal coming from the antenna cannot get past these coils. Now which coil in particular? There's three of them here. If you notice, two are lined up this way and one is that way. There's a reason for that. They want the interaction between the coils to be as minimal as possible. And probably as you switch band, you're selecting which of these coils you're operating. So we need to start right there, look at the band switch and figure out the signal coming from the antenna, which is right here. Which of these coils is it going to? I think it's this one, but I need to verify these things because I need, this is all about certainty this time. I need to know exactly what's going on with these. And it would look like the last guy here, it looks like he desoldered here, and probably in behind there's another terminal on the back. There's a row of capacitors here with terminals sticking up, and they've simply mounted the coils on these capacitors basically. So he probably unsoldered the back here, pulled out the coil, did something to it, and then put it back in with trouble. There's clearly trouble in this coil. There's a piece of paper shoved down in the top. I don't know why. Why would somebody do that? I know why I would do that. I would shove a piece of paper in there to keep a wire from touching something. That's not a good sign. These two coils appear to have not been removed, just looking at the solder and the way the wires run. You see this one, the wire has had to be extended to make it there. Now, this could just be because the person took a pair of cutters. I've certainly done this, regretfully. Let's say you nip this wire right here, kapowie, then when it comes time to reconnect it, there's not enough wire. Now, there is with this one. This is a bad example. But other wires, they're quite taut, and if you cut them off, you just can't resolder them without doing this. It's another indication that you remove this coil. There's also a piece of green wire. It looks like Bell telephone quad wire is what it looks like. Only a single insulated strand of that cable was used to do something. It goes down inside the coil, and then we can't see for sure what's happening. Now this isn't a coil, this is coils. There's one here, and then the one here you can see. You can see this one. The other one is here. This is much finer wire, and it's wound. It's not wound along the form like this. It's wound, I don't know how to describe it, on top of itself, over and over and over, so it builds up a bulk of a bulky coil here. Those are the observations I can make like this. I got a capacitor coming up from here to an airborne connection to a resistor. This is pretty weird. This wouldn't have been done originally in the factory. So what's this capacitor doing there? And there is a long shot story here. I'll throw the long shot story out, and it's a long shot. One of these coils was defective, and the guy swapped the other coil in and then manipulated the coil to make it do what he wanted it to do. That's a bit of a stretch, literally. So there's probably more possibilities I'm not thinking of. Well, let's start with looking at the switch here. So the red signal wire, I've done this once already, so I'm just redoing it. Kind of comes to here, and then, okay, so this is now in shortwave position, and that would be broadcast position. So the wire my finger is on, it's connected to this red wire, which is running to this coil. So maybe I've been And this is the coil I was checking out. This one's caught my attention. This is the one that's involved here. I probably made some mistakes when I was working on this before, making observations. Well, that's hard to see in there. Let's start with, we'll try looking with this camera. And we'll see what we can see. What can we see? So here's the coil. You can see the three of them there. There's the red wire at the back. You see that wire appears to have been extended also, because you see the solder in the center of the screen there, and then you can see a copper piece going to the left to a terminal right on the form. So he's been back here fooling around. And if you were to shove a soldering iron down through all this stuff, you run a pretty good risk of hitting these coils. These three coils, really two coils. I think the green one is one coil, and then this part here is actually a single coil of wire, but it's been wound in two chunks. I think I mentioned this before, probably to control bandwidth or something like that. What exactly am I looking for? I'm looking for broken wire, and I'm looking for how was this done. Excuse me. Let me just poke in there a little bit. I'll poke that red wire. See, I'm wondering, is it down on a terminal right here? Well, it appears as if he's made two connections to the same terminal there. The copper, what it looks like a copper wire. Can I even point at it? This copper wire right here. It looks like there's a terminal rivet right there. And it looks like there's a terminal sticking out here and he's attached to it. What's all this? I'm pretty sure that's another terminal. Well, why all this? Just making really sure he got it connected. Well, assuming that is connected inside the coil, which is something we may look into in a minute, inside the coil form, that connection looks doubly secure. Now, where's the other connection? There's got to be another connection here. There it is down there, to the capacitor. Now, I think I got 2 emails from viewers saying it looked like this connection was broken off or not connected. Well, what exactly is not connected? So there's a wire running between the 2 capacitor terminals at the back there. And then we can't see the second connection to this coil. It's probably right in here. Now, normally when they make these things, these coils, the terminals are built onto the coil, fixed onto the coil form, and then the coil wire comes up either through the inside or over the outside and attaches firmly to this terminal. And then when you build a radio, you bring in the radio wire, here it is here, and you hook it up to the terminal. You never try to attach one of these wires straight onto the coil wire. It's just not done that way. Well, it's done that way in this radio. And this also looks like it might be. Well, maybe they had two terminals sticking out, one for the coil wire and the other for the radio wire. Because it kind of looks that way up here, doesn't it? There's a little thing sticking out here and something soldered to it. How about this one? Well, this one you can see the wire coming right out and going right around this terminal. It's that bottom thing. How can I get in there and see that? It's just about really impossible. You can see there's a clearance between the top of the terminal and the coil. I'm only guessing that there should be a connection to that terminal from the coil near it. It's possible. You see the two connections back here. Whoops. The two connections back here. That they've doubled up this. These two, like there's 4 capacitors here, and they've doubled 2 of them together, maybe. Well, if they were doing that, then they would double the other ends, but they haven't. The other ends are going different coils. So this is probably a ground point back here. Here's another a clear view of the terminal arrangement with one large terminal and one small terminal and the wire hooked up to it very clearly. So that must be what I was seeing back here. I'm seeing the fact that there's a well, he's gone and soldered the lead wire to both of those terminals. Why would he bother doing that? Because he couldn't help it. Because the soldering was so precarious. Now I don't see a small wire in there anywhere. It doesn't mean it's not there, but I don't see it. You would think it would maybe pop out of the rivet hole down here. Where am I taking my stick down there? Down the rivet hole, and then maybe that's it right there. I'm touching it. Maybe. Or maybe that connection is faulty. I did do a test to try to figure out excuse me, if there was a field being generated by the primary, and certainly it was a field being generated by something, either the primary or the secondary, or even both. I'll have to look down there. Here you can see the wire quite clearly, right here, coming up into here. Actually it comes kind of weird how it kind of comes out and kind of flops around a bit before it goes around the terminal. Don't know what they're up to there. Is that a sign of work being done? I don't know. Let's see if I can shine some light down in here. So we have this terminal right here. Got a side terminal on it when there's a wire hooked up to it. So you have an outside wire and an inside wire, I guess. That's how they've done this. If the wire, like one end of the coil is terminating farther away from the terminal, and if you bring the wire out around the outside, it has to cast its way over top of the coil. So you're more likely to plunge it into the center and bring it up nice and neat. So that probably goes down. It does appear to be the case, doesn't it? It goes down. Oh. Is that soldered? You know, this really reminds me of looking in my ear. Look at the wax in there. Gotta get that wax out. It shouldn't be soldered. There should be nothing soldered there. That should just be a continuous wire coming out. Okay. Well, you know, nothing obvious is happening here. I'm not seeing a break. Okay, so I'm going to do a little experiment here. I have another camera we can employ. It's super duper close-up camera, and I'm going to see, maybe this won't work, but let's give it a try here. Okay, this might seem a little freaky and might not work. This might not work at all, but this device here I'm holding in my hand, the VidGoGo. I never knows the name of it. So this is a device that you shove in your ear and scoop out the wax. Has a light in it, has a TV camera right in the tip there. So you can look at what you're doing. Now, what are you looking at? You're looking at a screen, you're looking at your phone. Oh, I didn't turn on the software. This makes a Wi-Fi connection to your phone or whatever device you want to use. And voila. Da, 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 da. There we are. I'm going to stick this down that tube there. I'm going to put this in front of the other camera so you can watch it. Now, my phone is liable to make interfering sounds on the video here. Now, I'm not going to stick this in my ear. Yes, and the scoop is right in the way. Like, you know, when you're... Oh, look at it. I must have some dirt on the camera here. On the camera eyepiece. Oh, wow. How do you deal with that? Let's see if I can brush it away. Yeah, so I did warn you this may not work at all. We'll see. That's better. There we go. Some dust there. Okay. Here we go. We're going in the coil. And what are we seeing here? We're seeing that there's a focus problem on the camera. I believe it's not... I'm getting a nice reflection from this lamp. That looks a little focused there. What can we see with this guy? Okay, first of all, let's look at these. It doesn't like the shiny surface very much, does it? Okay, we're going in. Hold on a second now. I got some button here I can push, reverse it, and I find that pushing that button helps a lot. Here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Going down. Still seems to be backwards. I feel like I should scrape that wax out of there. Now I'm going to flip it around the other way again, left for right. Yeah, this makes more sense to me. Okay. Right at the bottom of the coil. So there's the rivet. A little wire going to it on the inside here. Another rivet down here, the opposite side. We should see a wire, I would think, not necessarily, but my gosh, what is that? Well, is that a little bit of fresh solder there? Fresh would be, 10 years old solder. Do I see anything weird? Like, did I see a wire hanging around? I don't see anything weird. Okay, we'll go to the top part. Should see the wire here. There's the wire right there at the bottom. Coming up, going along, and disappears into the rivet, just as we saw with the other camera. I'm not seeing anything here that's thrilling me in any way. Not seeing anything. Now I did a, hey, you want to look in my ear? No. No, that's not going to happen. Anything else worth looking at while I'm holding this little guy? You should find out what it's capable of, because this can become a useful tool here. So that's just looking in a hole. You can't really see it when I pull it away. That's just looking in a hole. That's what this is for. This is for looking in holes. Here's a hole. Let's go up this hole. It really does remind me of the inside of my ear. Not that part. We're looking at my brain now. That's a tuning capacitor. Isn't that exciting? Okay, just bear with me while I play around some more here. Might as well get a little exercise with this so I can find out what can and can't be done with it. By the way, this is very effective in your ears. This is going up the IF transformer form on the inside. Nothing to see there. Nothing to see. Well, we would need something more exciting to look at. But this is quite effective. I'm pretty happy with this. This can be used a little bit. It's a little hard to get the context from such a close-up. But where else could we go? Looking, it's got to be a big enough hole I can stick this in. Oh my gosh, there's a capacitor here. I found a found another capacitor. It's attached to the speaker. The speaker leads. Okay, enough of that. Enough playing around with that. So what did we find out there? We found out there's nothing unusual to see inside the form. Nothing unusual going on. Well, okay. I'm quite convinced that the signal reaches this coil or transformer, but never gets past it. It could be other wiring errors, like these secondary leads maybe not going the right place. This one looks like it's been desoldered and well, I don't know. So I saw in the diagram the schematic for the similar radio, or the radio before being altered like this. The switch was switching not only switching both the primary and secondary side, it looked like. So you're switching in two sets of coils. Really? Two sets of coils? I gotta look at that diagram again. Okay, so here's what I believe is the correct schematic for the radio before being altered. And here is the coil I believe I was just looking at, this primary. Notice one side is grounded here. The secondary side is switched. It's switched here, and it's switched here. So you switch either this primary or this primary, and at the same time you select which secondary you want to operate. That's 4 coils. Well, I don't see any 4 coils on there. Or maybe I just haven't. Maybe one of them's just hidden. I couldn't see it. I don't see 4. That's a big and then we get back into this thing, which I really haven't dealt with properly. This shouldn't, even if this is open or shorted, if it's open, then there's no bias voltage reaching here, but it shouldn't stop the radio from operating. And I found that when you put a signal into the antenna, you cannot ever find it here. The only thing in between was this capacitor. Is that the one I saw on the top? The one the guy put in? No, it goes to a resistor. Off one of the terminals is a capacitor that leads to a resistor. A capacitor that leads to a resistor. And I don't see any such thing here. It really gives me the EBGBs that... Oh, 9:43. I should put that in another room, maybe. Well, this is all very curious. Here's a capacitor. Here's a resistor, but the capacitor doesn't lead to it. It would have to be connected down here. What did the guy do? Well, I'm back to having to make a diagram of, because I can't sort this out without doing that, so we're back to that. Okay, I'm kind of jumping around here. Turn my attention to this coil, the one with a piece of paper shoved down in it, and I have my special mini camera ready here. We're going to try to figure out what's going on with a piece of paper, and it looks like there's two terminals back here that are connected to nothing. That's a little weird. So we want to look at these things. So once again, I have this hooked up to I have it hooked up. It's hooked up. Here we are. I'm just going to roll this across my page. Ew. Okay, let's take a look. So first of all, the two terminals that appear to be connected to nothing. And I'm sorry about the scoop that stays in view there. Wow, it's very hard looking at these shiny things. So here's one terminal. Yeah, this is not a good way to look at this. There is a wire down here you can kind of make out, but it's just close. It's not really in contact. And then here's another terminal right here with nothing hooked up to it. Okay, now we're going to try to... Here's the piece of paper. And there's the lead wire. See that he soldered it here to a piece of radio wire. He soldered an extension. Doesn't really look very soldered, does it? Doesn't sound very soldered either. Okay, can't be sure with this camera. And that wire comes all the way down, disappears into the coil. Pretty loosey-goosey there where I'm bumping it. I got to pull this piece of paper out because it's not... Oh, this is worse. This is worse than looking at my ear canal. Oh, look at that wire. Just, yeah, let's pull this piece of paper out of there. I hear the wire flopping around like crazy. You know what? There's another piece of wire. I didn't even see it. There's another piece of wire. Here, let me do this. I can do this. I can do this. So when I'm standing here looking at this, I see this capacitor and I see it soldered here. I even talked about it a moment ago. What I didn't notice is in behind it there's a wire coming from inside the coil. So we have two inside coil wires. They don't have... Okay, one on the left is an extension reaching down inside. The other one looks like the actual coil wire, but how'd you get that much slack on it? So it's probably an extension too. Why would he do that? And then the green wire is just disappearing in there. So I can see a lead wire wrapped around the terminal at the back there. Let me point at it. Oh my gosh, this is horrifying. Right here, there's a lead wire. Not this dark one, this copper one down here. And there's a lead wire going down to the terminal, the rivet. Same wire. That piece of wire doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They brought it from the outside top of the coil, popped it through the rivet hole, brought it up inside, and wrapped it around the terminal. So, well, that's got nothing to do with where the other two wires are going, the ones that assumably the fellow put in. They're going much deeper down in here. Well, they're not that wire. This wire is not likely to have trouble. It's too strong. Now, I got a couple couple of emails from people saying they could see the broken connection, and I think it's just an effect of looking at things with a two-dimensional camera. Like if you look at that, don't you think that wire is soldered to this terminal? It's not. It's just in front of it. You can see the coil wire coming up out of the coil in the wax up to this terminal. And then what's it connected to? It looks like nothing. There's probably no reason to connect this to both this terminal and this one. So then my observation about it could, one of these terminals could be just used as a terminal connection point now. Maybe the wires are broken inside, and I think this must be a connection to a coil when it's not. And then the coil is actually connected up here. Now, wait a minute, how could you... Is it possible somebody just monkeyed around until the radio started working to some degree and then went, yeah, that's a good arrangement? You could not have done this with this coil in the radio. The coil had to be removed from the radio for him to do these things. Why would he do that? Like, why wouldn't he just kind of fix up the factory connections to the terminals? This terminal back here also appears to be connected to nothing. No radio wires anyway. Oh my gosh, what has he done? Has he just completely... Like, why do any of this anyway? If this is about changing the tubes, and apparently there's reasonable replacements, and a reasonable way of doing it, what's all these coils got to do with it? What would prompt him to do all this? A defect in the coil. A suspected defect in a coil. You know what he could have done? He could have thought, oh, the coil's bad. So he took it out to test it, examine it, and attempt to fix it. Found out there's nothing wrong with it, but this is what he ended up with when he put it back in. This schmozzle. It could be a long, heartbreaking story about how this got to be like this. And then he barely got it working and went, whew, I'm done. Oh my gosh. I can look at this all day and not really don't know what to do about it. I'm just worried there's more in here to see. I'm not really seeing properly. Wow. Yeah, deep breath. I should go and pick the wax out of my ears. Maybe that's the best thing I can do here. I'm going to have to make this diagram. I just started doing it there a few minutes ago and stopped again because I noticed something funny up here. Part of doing these diagrams is it forces you to look very closely at everything, and your assumptions, if you do it right, will blow away any assumptions you're making, assumptions you don't even know you're making. What were you in there for? This is clear now. Maybe I take this off. I might be able to get the big camera to look straight in. Let's take this guy back off here. Might be just too dark in there. don't think I can get the angle sufficient to look down in it. I just have to work the camera right into the radio. Okay, that's looking down in it. Now, we need a little more light on the topic. I'll use my flashlight here. And we need to, okay. Just see if I can set the light like that. Yeah. Now I'm going to fiddle with the focus here. Bear with me a moment. I have to call up the focus dialog box on my computer. There we go. Okay, well, let's start right at the bottom, where the flashlight is. I'd say at around 1 o'clock. You can see a wire coming out. It's a heavy wire. Comes out, heads towards the top. And it's connected to the green wire. Okay. Now, halfway up. Okay, let's start at the very top. Top right at 12 o'clock on the circle. You can see a wire going down into it, focusing down the wire. It gets caught up in the, now we know what the paper's for. It's getting caught up in the bare wire coming up. And that's a blob of solder, I'm sure. And so you could get a short in there really easily. And I pulled the paper out. It must have been a struggle to get the paper in there in the first place. You know, we come back up. We look at down at the 7 o'clock. We see a wire. Goes a distance, gets soldered. And it continues. That's definitely a coil wire. Looks like all the wires have been taken off the terminals. I mean, the whole objective is to not get it like this. Why? Why would it? And the so the one that's coming up from the bottom, the heavy one, coming up from the bottom and attaching to the green wire. Why? Like, why would that be? Wasn't it going somewhere? Why has it been extended? And all I can do is make funny sounds at this point. I mean, really. The wire. Well, that's the view anyway. I get to see some stuff in there. I don't think I can get the camera in any better than that. Let me show you what it looks like right now. There's my camera. There's the top of the camera, all jammed in through the wires and whatnot. Okay, I think I'm going to stop at this point. I think I probably have a view now. I can understand what was done to this coil if I study it close enough, looking through the camera and whatnot. And then I can make up a proper diagram here. This is a diagram I made earlier. I'll just extend this one further to include this coil. But the thing is, the wires from the antenna appear to be coming to this coil. What's this one got to do with it? Or I don't know. I mean, two of these have to be oscillator coils. I'm sure I'm pointing at the oscillator coils here. Well, I'm not. You know what? I'm not sure of it. And that's why I'm going to stop now. So thanks a lot for watching. A bit of a confusing video. I'm not really getting things to, well, I did get something to move forward. I know what's in that coil now. Sort of. Kind of. Okay, I'm done. See you later.